Good morning. This morning's scripture is from the book of Daniel, chapter 4, verses 24 through 27. This is what the dream means, Your Majesty, and what the Most High has declared will happen to my lord the king. You will be driven from human society, and you will live in the fields with the wild animals. You will eat grass like a cow, and you will be drenched with the dew of heaven. 7 periods of time will pass while you live this way, until you learn that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world and gives them to anyone he chooses. But the stump and roots of the tree were left in the ground. This means that you will receive your kingdom back again when you have learned that heaven rules. King Nebuchadnezzar, please accept my advice. Stop sinning and do what is right. Break from your wicked past and be merciful to the poor. Perhaps then you will continue to prosper. This is the word of the Lord.
All right, we have VBS coming up, and it's on Daniel and the Lion's Den, and so all through this month, we are going through the book of Daniel, so that as adults, we're prepared. All right? I want you to think back in time. The year's 1993. The place is Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri. A young private by the name of Robert Abel is in the midst of rifle and bayonet training. And what rifle and bayonet training is that's the part of basic training where when you can no longer shoot your weapon, you use it to hit people in the face with instead. Okay? So you go through days of this with, your little knife, your bayonet fixed to the front of the rifle. You do the whole thing. The culmination of rifle and bayonet training is when you all get to walk down to the pugil stick pit and fight each other with what are called pugil sticks. If you don't know what a pugil stick is, it looks like a giant Q-tip. All right? It's a stick, and on each side is a big foam ball, and you try to hit each other in the face with it. It's a lot of fun. And we went down, and everybody gets to go through and have a fight to 3 points. Okay, first 1 to 3 wins. You get to fight your battle buddy, and my battle buddy was not that smart and not that athletic and very clumsy, and it was a quick match for me, 3-zip. And I was feeling pretty good about myself. And then everybody got done, and it was the time when they said, okay, does anybody want to fight anybody else? Does anybody have a grudge point? And a few people did, and they had a grudge. And then they said, all right, is everybody done? And one drill sergeant said out loud, well, I'd like to see Cain fight Abel. I was in 2nd platoon, and there was a guy in 3rd platoon by the name of Cain. Okay? And now I'm pretty strong, I'm pretty smart, I'm pretty fast, I'm pretty athletic. I thought, here we go. I said, I'm in. And I walked up and I grabbed my pugil stick and I put on that foam head thing that you put on. And I'm thinking, I'm going to right a 5,000-year-old wrong, right? Abel's going to get a little revenge on Cain. So here's the thing. The Cain versus Abel match, Part 2, went exactly like Part 1. Because what I failed to take into account was that Cain was bigger, Cain was stronger, and Cain was faster than this Abel as well. If that Cain isn't like an army ranger at some point in his life, I would be shocked. That dude was big, he was fast, and he whooped my butt. Listen, pride goeth before the fall. Am I right? The first shall be last, and that day I was feeling first, and I was very quickly made to feel last. Have you ever felt pretty good about yourself only to get knocked down a peg? We all have at one point or another, right? If you live long enough, what you find out is that it's good to get humbled every now and then because when you get humbled, it keeps you humble. And that's a good thing. We all know people, though, who seem to not have learned that lesson right? People who pride seems to be their default. They're the biggest, they're the smartest, they're the best. It's all me, me, me. They're a legend in their own mind. And those people are a lot sometimes, right? They're a little hard to hang out with. But those people who are the smartest and the best and the toughest, they like to let you know it. The past 2 weeks, if you were here, I wasn't here last week. I skipped church. But someone else was here for me. The past 2 weeks, we've been talking about 4 young men: Daniel, Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael. Or as we know them, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? So those 4 young men, we find out, because of their faith in God, they were incredibly gifted. They were blessed with wisdom, and they had some special abilities that they were gifted with by God, but they never at any point seemed proud about it. They never seemed self-righteous. But there is somebody in that story who does seem self-righteous, because he is the leader of the most powerful nation on earth. The nation is Babylon, and the guy's name is Nebuchadnezzar. And interestingly, in chapters 4, 5, and 6, we get to meet, in 3 chapters, 3 leaders of the nation that Daniel is a part of. In chapter 4, we continue the story of Nebuchadnezzar. In chapter 5, we get to meet a guy named Belshazzar, or Belshazzar. And in chapter 6, we get to meet a guy by the name of Darius. All men, that's interesting, because we're talking about pride. They're all guys, imagine that. But these are 3 really cool stories. And each story is a shot across the bow to anyone who is struggling to stay humble. And we'll see in the next 3 weeks that the greater the pride, the farther and harder the fall. So today, we're going to kind of set the bar with good old Nebuchadnezzar, all right, who we've already met in previous chapters and previous weeks. But in Daniel chapter 4, it's kind of extra cool, because this is a chapter where Nebuchadnezzar is at least partially the author of the chapter, okay? Now, he sets his own scene for us. It's a scene of peace and prosperity. He's in the greatest nation on earth. He claims it is God's nation. He claims that the Most High has made it all great for him. And Nebuchadnezzar thinks that he is God's chosen guy, and so he does something interesting. He sends a message out to the rest of the known world to let everybody know it, okay? This is 2,600 years ago, and this dude is literally writing letters to let people know just how cool he was. And man, no one loved Nebuchadnezzar more than Nebuchadnezzar, right? You know what I'm saying? But then one night he had a dream. Right after he sends out this letter, he has a dream. And this is what he says in his dream. He says, "I, Nebuchadnezzar, was living in my palace in comfort and prosperity, but one night I had a dream that frightened me. I saw visions that terrified me as I lay in my bed." And so Nebuchadnezzar does what he often does when he has a dream. In chapter 2 of Daniel, which we skipped over in our reading, he also had a dream, okay? But in this dream, he does the same thing. He calls everyone together, the magicians, the astrologers, the enchanters, and the fortune tellers, to tell him what it means, and no one does. I don't know if no one can, but this is not a good dream, so there might have been some people who just didn't want to, so no one tells him what his dream means. Now, he had a previous dream, and that dream frightened him, and when he called all these guys in, he basically said, "I need you to tell me what my dream was, and then tell me what it means." It was almost like a test. Like, don't just tell me what my dream means after I tell you what it is. I don't need a bunch of yes men around me. I want you to actually prove to me that you're an enchanter, that you're a magician, that you're whatever you say you are. And first of all, tell me what my frightening dream was. Of course, nobody can do that. The stakes are high, and so they bring in Daniel, who now has this special gift of interpreting dreams. And it was Daniel in chapter 2 who said, "This is what your dream was," and he told them what his dream was, "and this is what your dream means." Okay? So here we are again, and nobody can interpret the dream, even though he's told them the dream this time. And so Daniel is summoned once again, and Nebuchadnezzar explains his dream to him. He says, there's this tree. I dreamed there was this tree, and it was in the center of the earth, and its branches were wide, and it had fruit, and it had leaves, and there was shade, and the animals came in, and the birds were in its branches, and they were eating its fruit, and it was this big, beautiful tree. And then all of a sudden it kind of switches, and there's a messenger who's shouting. And he's shouting, cut down the tree, strip off the branches, shake off the leaves, get rid of the fruit, right? Do all of this, but only leave the stump in the ground. Get rid of the tree and leave the stump, and put a band of iron and bronze around the stump. Okay? And then the messenger all of a sudden isn't calling it a tree, it's calling it he. And the messenger's saying like this, let him be drenched with the dew of heaven, and let him live with the wild animals among the plants of the field for 7 periods of time. Let him have the mind of an animal instead of a human, right? So all of a sudden, and he says, and this has been decreed by the messengers for the holy ones, so that everyone may know that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world. And that's the dream. And that's the dream that has Nebuchadnezzar shaken. Now, Nebuchadnezzar, he explains that dream. There's a couple things that I want to note before I move along. The first is that Nebuchadnezzar should have known better to start with, because he has seen what God can do, the power and the wisdom. Daniel had made his previous dream known without any help except the help of his God. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had walked out of a fiery furnace that they had been thrown into. Nebuchadnezzar had looked into the fiery furnace and seen a fourth figure in there and proclaimed that it looks like the son of a god. So Nebuchadnezzar was impressed. Yahweh, though, was their God and not his. Their God was cool, but that God worked for Nebuchadnezzar, right? He had accomplished everything because of his own wisdom, his own power, and God simply did what he did in service to Nebuchadnezzar and Nebuchadnezzar's power. All right? So in Nebuchadnezzar's mind, Daniel's God is here, and Nebuchadnezzar is way up here, right? Second thing is that as Daniel walks in and Nebuchadnezzar tells the dream, it's important for us to recognize that these two guys, Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar, they're loyal to each other and they're kind to each other. So there's hesitation on Daniel's part to give the bad news of what the dream means, but he does something that's very important here, okay? Daniel looks the most powerful man in the world right in the eyes, and he tells them the truth. He tells them the truth. And that's not the human default, okay? I hate to say it, but human default is to be truthful to people who are on our own level, or especially people who are down here below us, right? We can be very truthful to the lowest and the most broken people in the world. Well, you're not just that smart, so you probably don't belong in college. You wouldn't be in this situation if you hadn't gotten pregnant in high school. You don't need my help what you really need to do is go get yourself a job. Right? That's easy. It feels pretty good because we like to be superior to other people. We like to be Nebuchadnezzar. Right? So we can look down on someone and tell them the very hard truths in life. But when it comes to the powerful, we become a bunch of spineless yes men and yes women. Right? Great idea, boss. You're so smart, professor. Everything you do is amazing, senator. Great sermon, pastor. Yeah. We reserve the truth for later when we're sitting on our own couch grumbling and complaining in our living room. That sermon was awful. Put me right to sleep. That's human nature. That's what the advisors do to a pride-filled and powerful man. They did it then, and they do it now. But Daniel shows us a better way. He's truthful, but he's also compassionate. He interprets the dream truthfully, and then he gives Nebuchadnezzar an exit, right? A way to reorder his level of importance in his own mind, a way to connect to the sovereign God, a couple things to do to replace Nebuchadnezzar's pride with humility. So Daniel steps up and he interprets the dream, right? He says, the tree, Nebuchadnezzar, is you. The crazy guy eating grass, that's you, right? He starts and he says, but I really I wish that this dream was for somebody other than you, good king, right? But then he goes through. He said, this is what the dream means. You'll be driven from human society. You'll live in the fields with the animals. You'll eat grass like a cow. You'll be drenched with the dew of heaven. It'll go on for 7 periods of time until you learn that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world and gives them to anyone he chooses. This is your kingdom. God's going to take it from you. And when you realize that he's the one who's truly in charge, when you switch who's on the bottom and who's on the top, then maybe he'll give it back. And then he says, take my advice and turn to God. God's going to humble you. Try instead to humble yourself. It's the interpretation of the dream. The problem is in verse 28, the first word is but. But. I say I like it when it says but God in a thing, right? When all this stuff's going to be horrible, but God, right? And then we know something good is coming. In this case, it's but Nebuchadnezzar, right? All these things, but all these things did happen. Here's what happens. 12 months later, takes a year, Nebuchadnezzar was walking on the flat roof of the royal palace in Babylon. And as he looked out across the city, he said, look! At the great city of Babylon, by my own mighty power, I have built this beautiful city as my royal residence to display my majestic splendor. That's how he talks about himself, right? That's how I talk about myself when I walk around the parsonage. By my great power has North Rose become my kingdom. It is a tribute to my mighty splendor. And while the words were still in his mouth, a voice called down from heaven. That's never good. When you're patting yourself on the back and a voice calls from heaven. O King Nebuchadnezzar, this message is for you. You are no longer ruler of this kingdom. Boom. And Nebuchadnezzar goes crazy. He's homeless. His hair grows long. His nails grow long. And when people walk by him, he's living in a field eating grass like a cow. For how long? The Bible says for 7 periods of time. Some Bibles may say for 7 years. I don't know if a year is a period of time or if a period of time is a year. I do know that the number 7 usually means until everything is fulfilled completely. So what I know is in just the right amount of time until he learns who really rules the world. Nebuchadnezzar is humbled by God until he humbles himself. Nebuchadnezzar is humbled by God until he learns who is in control. It is later, this is kind of the conclusion of the story, after 7 years had passed, Nebuchadnezzar, I looked up to heaven. My sanity returned, and I praised God and worshiped the Most High God and honored the one who lives forever. His rule is everlasting and his kingdom eternal. All the people of the earth are nothing compared to him. He does as he pleases among the angels of heaven and among the people of earth. There it is. So let's talk about humility. God humbles the proud. I was going to write there, God can humble the proud, but instead I wrote, God humbles the proud always and without fail. I know there are a lot of people who seem to live their entire life feeling like they are just king of the world, right? Believing that from day one till the end of time, I'm the man, and we look at him and go, how come this idiot gets to live a good long life pretending like he's in charge, right? Well, listen, I can be as powerful as the president. I can be as rich as Elon Musk. I can be as handsome as, I don't know, the girls are going to have to figure out who's handsome. I don't know that answer. Every time I mention someone as handsome, my wife goes, he's not handsome. I don't know. I could shoot the ball like Michael Jordan. I could hit like Ted Williams. I could skate like Gretzky. I could play guitar like Stevie Ray Vaughan. I'm kind of aging myself here, by the way, these names. I can be proud, arrogant, self-serving, and cruel because I did this, I built this, and this is all there is. And one day, I'm going to keel over in my mansion or on my yacht or in my private jet. And my heart's going to stop, and I assure you that the next face I see will be the sovereign God. And I will be humbled. Because the scriptures tell us that every knee is going to bow before the King of Kings. Nebuchadnezzar can thank his lucky stars that he was humbled, because it's better to be humbled now, even if it means going insane and eating grass, than to face God with a chip still on your shoulder. But it's even better if we can humble ourselves. It's even better to be humble and to stay humble and experience the God who was and is and will be in a much more friendly way. The God who reigns, the God who loves, the God who presents us with joy and peace that lasts if we recognize it's God who rules the kingdoms of the world. Now, Daniel gives advice to Nebuchadnezzar. It's good advice for us. He says, don't sin, because sin is all about me. We sometimes think sin is like this awful thing. No, sin feels good, like really good sometimes, because it's all about me. He says, instead, do right. That's the humble thing. That's the good thing. Doing the right thing sometimes doesn't feel so good. He said, don't do wicked. Don't be self-serving. Don't be exploitative for your own gain. Instead, be merciful to the lowest. That's the humble thing, because it's not for my gain, it's for their gain. And it's Jesus who tells us what happens when we humble ourselves. It's the story I talked to with the kids this morning. Luke chapter 14, when everybody flows into the wedding banquet, and it's like everybody's clamoring for the head of the table seat next to the host. And Jesus says, you don't want to take that seat, because the host is going to come in and see how proud you are and say, I don't want to sit next to that guy. Push him down. That's humbling. Instead, humble yourself so when the host comes in, he'll call you forward. When we live proud, we are humble. But when we live humble, we will be called to a better seat, a seat closer to the place of God. That's that final verse. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Listen, maybe life won't be so positive for me. Maybe I won't have power. I won't have money. I won't have good looks. I won't have Michael Jordan's ability to shoot the ball. And maybe I'll get the opposite of all I described of living the good life where I'm the man. That life of power and pride. And instead, this life will be nothing but humbling. I'll have nothing but to keep my eyes on the King of Kings. This life won't always seem fair, but God sees us and God knows us. And God is waiting to call us forward at that banquet, to bring you close and to say, well done. And so the choice is before us, right? Exalt ourselves or exalt God. Worship accumulation of power and influence and gain, or worship the sovereign God, the one, the most high over the nations. Serve myself or serve my neighbor. Be humble or be humbled. The choice is ours. Choose wisely, friends. Lord, I thank you that you see through the things that we see to the heart. That the accumulation of power and stuff and the pride that goes along with it is not what assures us our seat at the table. But the way we love, the way we serve. And so I pray, Lord, that we would be humble, and that we would serve and love people the way Jesus did. And if we are not, a hard prayer, Lord, is that you would humble us, that we might be the people that you desire us to be. And I pray that this morning in the name of Jesus, who came and served and died for us. It is in his name. Amen.